Hello and welcome to the Paradigm Shift, Conquering Fear and Aligning to the Awakening. I'm your host, Mia Saenz, and with me this segment is Dr. Bernie Siegel. Welcome.
Welcome to you. My first thought that pops in my head is, just thinking about humor. Just before surgery, a woman was in great fear of the operation, and I spent almost an hour trying to calm her down in the hallway of the operating room. I realized, it's not working, just trying to calm her. So we went into the operating room, wheeling her in, and she looked around and said, "Thank God all these wonderful people are going to take care of me." And I thought, if I agree with her, what's that going to accomplish? Yeah. So I leaned over and I said, "I have worked with them for years. They are not wonderful people." And for a moment, I thought she's going to run down the hallway. But then she burst out laughing, as of course everybody in the room did, because the staff knows, I'm not a normal doctor. And, we became family in that moment.
Right.
And you can't be afraid when you're laughing. And so, the fear was over with a little bit of humor and not an hour of reassuring her.
Right, which was wonderful. That's awesome. Yeah. Can you share with us your journey of how you got to be the doctor that you are and being an author and what you love in life?
Yeah. I think if I had to go through many steps, I'd say first of all it starts with your childhood. That if you don't grow up with love, you got a real problem, with self-worth, self-esteem, and it's hard to go out in the world and be different. And, between my parents and my wife, because I got married while I was in medical school, so, I had somebody taking care of me all the time. But I knew that no matter how I behaved, I could go home and they would accept me. Mm-hmm. Robert Frost said it very well. Home is a place that when you go there, they have to take you in. So I had that security, and I could be different in the world. Mm-hmm. I became a doctor for what I call healthy reasons, mm-hmm. not what most do, which are unhealthy but not looked into. What creates a Jack Kevorkian is his personality and his problems with death. And, if they had analyzed him in medical school, and I mean in a healthy way, sat down and said, "Why are you choosing this specialty?" Mm-hmm. I love saying this to people. "Why did you become a surgeon?" Mm-hmm. "Well, I like cutting people up. I don't want to end up in jail, so as a reaction formation to my destructive tendencies, I thought I'd go into surgery." They look at you. But that came from my psychiatrist friend Carl Mann. Because, if we look at all those reasons, even say, why does a doctor choose pathology? Mm-hmm. Does he need to fail? Is that what his parents told him his whole life? So he chooses something where he can't cure everything. Mm-hmm. So I was in a lot of pain that was all internal because there's nowhere to share it. Mm-hmm. And at a workshop that I thought was for doctors, and it turned out there's 125 people, I was the only doctor in the room, because it was run by Dr. Carl Simonton, to help. He had written a book, Getting Well Again, with imagery and empowering patients. I go there and I'm shocked. I'm the only doctor in the room. But all around me now are my patients. And the one who really redirected my life, and I keep wishing I could find her, because she was a young woman with breast cancer. She said to me, "Bernie, you're a nice guy. I feel better when I'm in the office with you, but I can't take you home with me, so I need to know how to live between office visits." Mm. I thought, wow, then I don't have to feel like a failure. Mm-hmm. I don't have to bury all this pain. I can help people live. I may not live, I may not cure them, but I've helped them. So back to the office, send out 100 letters saying, "You want to live a longer, better life, come to a meeting." I'm expecting, several hundred people to show up, because I told the secretary, "Put in the letter, this is only for our patients who get this letter." And she forgot. Who shows up? Less than a dozen women. Because I don't know the people I'm taking care of. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm trying to help them and they don't want to come. And again, a lot of it goes back to parenting, read a book, draw a picture, answer questions. "Oh, I'm busy. I'm not an artist. I don't have time." Mm-hmm. Then there are other people I've had phone calls from who I say, "Look, you have to fill out the form with some questions. You have to draw a picture, and I'd like you to read the book." "Fine, I'll be there tomorrow." I said, wait a minute, did you hear what I said? Yes, I'll stay up tonight and do it. See, that's a survivor, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Or people who have come down to a support group from Canada saying, oh, I wanted to come and see you and, sit here. I said, don't worry, you will do very well if you came all the way from Canada just to sit in a meeting. And many studies show these things, from what I mentioned before, surviving with laughter, doing better with treatment the further you live from the hospital, all kinds of things. But sitting with those support groups, I learned that there are qualities that survivors had that we as doctors aren't taught. If you go to your doctor and they say, oh, you have this disease, okay, what do I do? What's the best thing for me to do? Take your pill, have your operation. Well, what about me? Just do what I'm telling you. And what I learned is that isn't the truth, that it had so much to do with the quality of the person and how they redirected their life in many cases. And I've had people who have refused treatment. This landscaper always comes back in my head, and I talk about him a lot, because I couldn't cure him. He had retired, developed an ulcer, turned out to be cancer. Every time I would tell him, you need an operation, you need more treatment. You forgot something. What did I forget? It's springtime. I want to go home and make the world beautiful. So when I die, I leave a beautiful world. After a few weeks, he came back for surgery. But then he refused all further treatment because it's still springtime. He lived to 94.
Wow.
No sign of cancer. And he was busy making the world a beautiful place. I mean, he was never trying not to die. Oh, what was funny, I've got to add this. 6 years after I had operated on him for cancer, the nurse handed me his chart in the office. And I said, what are you doing? He's dead. We must have two people with the same name, so get the right chart. She said, open the door. I opened the door, and there sat John. I have a hernia from lifting boulders in my landscape business. From that moment on, he became my teacher. See, I'm assuming he goes home and dies, and here he is 6 years later. So I started following him around by 20 days to see the beauty of the world and to appreciate what he had done. And a psychiatrist, George Solomon, it's a list on my website called Immune Competent Personality. Again, he saw it with AIDS patients. He could give them, 8 or 9 questions, and depending on their answer, he knew if they'd be a long-term survivor. Probably the most prominent one that nurses have a lot of trouble with. You're asked to do a favor by a friend or a family member that you do not want to do. What would you tell them? And most nurses say, well, yes, I would do it. But then I keep repeating, you're saying no to yourself all the time. And that's why, if I had to summarize, I always say to people, love your life and love your body. Then it gets a message. And as I began to meet more people I thought were dead, and I mean that literally, you go out to lecture at some church or at some school, and you look in the audience, and I thought he was dead, And so I go down there, because they never came back to the office. And I said, what's that? Oh, I got a story, and they would tell you a story. And again, it's always hard for me to stop, but it was a patient who told me he wanted to go to Colorado and die in the mountains. So beautiful there. I said to the family, when he dies, tell me I'm going to come to the funeral, because I really had an attachment to him. A year goes by, and I am really angry, because I have had no phone call. So I call up to give the family hell that they ignored my feelings. He answers the phone. And it's like, what? He said, yeah, it was so beautiful here, I forgot to die. Now, there are people in Colorado who hear me tell that and say, why did it help him coming here? And my comment is, I think you need to move to Florida. It's, again, the person seeking what was right for them. It could be changing jobs, buying a house on the ocean, taking your tie off. They didn't have to be, earth-shaking, but they were just what was significant to the person. And when things became unimportant, they let them go.
That's a really good point about, you brought up a lot of good points that, well, I'm a self-love teacher. I don't know if you know that. My last summit was the Self-Love Summit, and you talked about, there are a lot of abuse going on in our families in the world, being raised, and so we really, my thing is we have to re-raise ourselves as we become adults. And also creating a magnificent life. As people who know my story know that 5 years ago I was literally on death's door. I was given less than 2 years to live, and I lost 140 pounds in 7 months, no surgery, woke up on my birthday and just said, if I could finally live a beautiful life, what would it look like? And so that's what I created. I got out of my marriage because I saw that it was killing me, and what it would be like with a happy person, and to lose the weight, and to have a different relationship with my children, and what could I create? It became so magnificent that I had to rebuild my inner core because I was in a wheelchair, and I lost the weight, no surgery. Doctors were so shocked that I was losing 20 pounds a month, working out twice a day and changing my eating habits, that they literally bent over backwards when I wanted to have my breasts reduced and lifted, and and all the cosmetic things to make me feel more pretty, to start my new life. But the amazing thing is that I lived, It was 2 months after I started.
But somebody or something had to make you shift.
Oh,
Let me go back through what you're saying, because I see the same thing. Mm-hmm. The opposite of love is indifference, rejection, and abuse. Mm-hmm. And part of all the headlines you're reading now is related to that. Mm-hmm. You want revenge, so you kill people. Then you commit suicide or get killed, out of the guilt. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned is, from a suicidal teenager, see, it's hard as hell to reparent yourself. That's the word I want. Mm-hmm. To show that you're, worth something. Mm-hmm. Because I've taken care of people whose parents committed suicide, told their kids to kill themselves. I mean, all these horrible lives. Yeah. But we can reparent each other. And a suicidal teenager said to me, "You're my CD." What? Mm-hmm. What do you mean I'm a CD? You're my chosen dad. Aww. See? So I tell that to people now. Yeah. You need a father, I'll be your father. Uh-huh. And it does save lives. I know that. It does. Because they realize somebody loves me, I must be worth something. Mm-hmm. So as a physician, school teacher, member of the clergy, doctor, if you let the people that you're caring for know that they're worth something, then with time, they begin to realize, you didn't give up on me. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could be a lousy student, a terrible patient who doesn't do anything, but the teacher keeps loving you, and you begin to find that. And I also tell people, put shrines in their home, put pictures of themselves around the house, and love themselves as they go around. You don't have to like everything, about yourself or the person you're loving, but you love them, and they know that, and it makes all the change in the world. Because parents' words are hypnotic, and so are those of us. And I found, just because I did a lot of children's surgery, that because my words were hypnotic, I began to really, what I call, deceive them into help. Because, I would give them messages that were life-enhancing and made things easier for them, rather than scare them in terms of how I talk to them. But I say to people that they're capable of reparenting. And you can't do it until you do one thing. The ugly duckling's thrown out of the house. Where does he see he's a swan? On a still pond. He sees swans, wishes he's a swan, looks down and realizes, woo, I am a swan. Let me add one more thing. A tiger is brought up by goats when his mother dies. The goats, instead of, letting him die, say, well, let's bring him up. Another tiger shows up one day and says to him, hey, stupid, you're a tiger. What the hell are you doing? He says, come with me. He takes him over to a still pond and says, look, you're a tiger. And Joseph Campbell used that story. He said it's like yoga, meditation. Quiet your mind. And that's something people have to understand. If there's turbulence, you never see yourself. Exactly. But when it's still, and one last story. A woman, because how people can learn their wounds is, anytime you have a problem, say to yourself, how would I describe what I'm going through? Whether it's a headache, cancer, lost your job, divorce, what are you going through? And one woman said to me, failure. I said, how does that fit your life? Well, my body failed. I have cancer. That's not my question. How does failure fit your life? Oh, my parents committed suicide. I must have been a failure as a child. See? So, and I would add one more thing. I have mafia friends. And my friend Carmine said, if you have problems, there are 3 ways to solve them. See? One is you can remove yourself from the situation. 2, you can tell the other person to get out of here. You know, like getting a divorce, quitting a job. Or 3rd, we can eliminate the problem for you. But he said, he's just kidding. He said, what you do is, if you brought love into the situation and ask how it can solve it. And that's something I've learned too. But I do say, if it's affecting your health, choose the first 2. Get out of there, or get what's threatening you out of there.
Right.
But if it isn't threatening your health, say, how can I bring love in? And let me have one more question, because I used to go around the hospital giving out a pin with people's name and a rainbow on it. See, the rainbow is a symbol of your life in order. And that's when the healing happens. And the transformation is the butterfly, because Solzhenitsyn in his book Cancer Ward talked about the rainbow-colored butterfly, if you want self-healing. But there was this medical secretary on one of the floors, and I said, what's your name? I always used to say it gruffly, so people thought I was going to report them for something. Then I'd show up with a gift, see, what's your name? She's the only one who ever said, why do you want to know? I said, oh, well, I want to give you a gift. Sit down. She said, I've been here 2 years, but when I took the job, I hated it. I couldn't stand the nurses and the patients and the doctors. So I went to the office. I said, I quit. They said, you can't quit. You have to give 2 weeks' notice. It's in your contract. You can't go home. So she said, I went back up. And every day I got up miserable for 2 weeks. The last day I got up happy, and I went to work happy. And I noticed something. All the people around me were happy. So I didn't quit. I decided to come in happy. And that was the effect she had. And why I said to her, I want to give you a gift. You have such a wonderful effect on everyone.
It's beautiful. I used to be a nurse.
So you know the feeling, right?
And also, you also said that it was the nurse that said that, and it's funny because a lot of us who have come from abusive upbringings do become nurses. We're caregivers.
That's interesting.
We try to make people happy, and that's what it is. And so we put ourselves last and everybody else first. And regarding that aspect of parenting yourself is you put yourself first, and you can still be a fabulous nurse. I just changed careers,
right.
but
it's not being selfish.
Exactly.
You know,
well, if you do it right, it's not being selfish. Exactly.
Well, the way I put it is, let your heart make up your mind. If it doesn't feel right, you don't. And if you're not treated with respect, you also speak up. You know, that there is appropriate anger, especially in a hospital situation where you may be treated like a disease, you know, a room, and not like a number, and not like a person. You speak up.
Right, exactly. I love how you brought out that love heals, and love does heal fear.
Pardon?
And love does heal fear.
Yeah.
And I love that.
It heals everything. Because what people have to understand, you know, you talked about humor too, that if you give actors, this was done, I always say, I don't make up any stories. You give actors a script, say, it can be, you know, humor, it can be love, and then it can be tragedy. You draw their blood while they're acting. In the tragedy, in this case it was this man murders this woman's husband, and then they meet in this script. Their immune function goes down, their stress hormone levels go up. But when love is involved, when laughter is involved, and they're just reading the script, it enhances their immune function and lowers stress hormones. And I was impressed because this was done by a graduate student. It was part of his thesis.
That's cool.
I mean, I was impressed because they were only acting. And that was another thing that you mentioned in your introduction. If you want to change, act as if you're the person you want to become. Act and behave as if. And you rehearse and practice. I always say to people, think of yourself as a blank canvas. And because I was an artist as a child, I mean, I still am, but that you don't throw it away if it doesn't look right. You retouch it. You work it out. What am I missing? You know.
Exactly.
And I say, think of yourself as this work of art. That you don't. throw yourself out. If you have a bad day, you say, okay, how do I do it better tomorrow? And like you yourself and what you're doing, you become a life coach and get life coaches so that you talk to your family and the people you work with and say, hey, if I don't act as if I'm the person I'm trying to be, give me a clue. and it doesn't have to be criticism. I mean, in a negative
never,
way.
never.
Yeah. I mean,
my teaching is based solely on love. I've done transformational stuff years ago that was based in, like Est, where you're coming at them. And it's like, I decided after that, no, I teach in love. And that's where my healing with my clients takes place, is in total love and safety.
Right.
So, yeah. Will you share with us your book, Love Miracles,
Love Medicine
and Miracles? Yes, thank you.
I'll tell you how. Jung said the future is unconsciously prepared long in advance and therefore can be guessed by clairvoyance. The only C I got in 4 years of college was in creative writing. So when somebody said to me, do you ever think of writing a book? You're speaking all the time. I said, no. I mean, it's not something, as a kid, as I said, I became a surgeon because I was an artist and had good hands and was very visual. And that person, got one person to talk to another, and the next thing you know, they all got together and, did I write it? No. What I did was talk it for hours. I just sat with a tape recorder and talk and talk and talk.
Yes.
And then a writer put it together. Since then, I've learned how to write, if you know what I mean, to be in touch and, between letters and emails and books and everything else. I mean, to be able, the author, William Saroyan, said it well, for anybody who wants to write a letter to everyone. So that's what I do. I write letters to everyone, with my experience.
Exactly.
And it means something and it's easy to read.
Right.
But that book, again, got me into trouble, you see, with medical profession, because asking patients what's going on in your life. Oh, you're blaming your patients. No, I'm looking at why they might be sick now. See, poets, songwriters, playwrights, write about that. You retire, you have a death in the family, you lose your job, whatever. And then people get sick. They see this in the world. But doctors don't say to people what's happening in your life. So I began to see that, as well as asking them, what are you experiencing? And to work at healing their life. Mother Teresa, I always love what she said. She said, I will not attend an anti-war rally, but if you ever have a peace rally, call me. So I didn't just focus on the disease, you see, to empower the enemy. We got to kill the disease. We got to. It was, how do we heal your life? And then, as I said, starting those support groups, they taught me about, changing lives and doing the things that became important. And I would add, the sad part many times to me also is that men rarely show up. The only time I have sat with an all-male support group is at a veterans hospital. See, they've been through life-threatening situations. They're a different group of guys. But most men, I can't work, what's the point of living? You
know what, Bernie? You have to know this. This is so cool, and I think you'll get it and you'll love it. On my last summit, the Self-Love Summit, I thought, I'm not going to have any men. 40% of my viewers were male. 40%. I'm like, and if people who know me know that I support the male energy. I love men, and that's not why they came, but it's brilliant that when we open up our hearts to both men to women and women to men, and we come together as one, they do show up. So I had to share that with you because they're starting to come forward. They're coming forward now. They're coming forward.
Guys, when they show up, but so often it became a joke in the support group. When a husband did come, which is extremely rare, when his wife was life was threatened with an illness, and you say, "Why are you here?" He would say, "I'm her chauffeur." No feelings, no. And the room would start laughing. Yeah. And he'd say, "What's funny?" Right. And then I'd explain to him, that's a mechanical answer. Don't you care about this woman? And literally, in about 30 years, 6 guys have said, "I love her. That's why I'm here." We've had more since then. Right. But and for men to say, while their wife and children are sitting next to them, there's no point in living. I can't work anymore. And one committed suicide because he was told he can't work and participate in sports anymore. And to me, it's, there's more to life and more meaning. And relationships are the key. But I also try to empower the women so they're not mama and, the wife. Because I watch women die when the kids have left home.
Right.
And literally,
right.
their comment was, I can't die till all the kids are married and out of the house.
Right.
Okay, so what about yourself? So I want the women to be, in a sense, their own child. Take care of yourself like you would a child.
Exactly.
And men to realize there's more to life than what you're doing. You got to be what I call a human being, not a human doing.
Yeah, and I think as time is progressing and things are opening up more in the last several generations, that or last several, like 20, 30 years, don't you see that there are male, our boys, our men, they're being raised differently, and so they're also coming forward more with a little bit more openness to a lot of this and less fear than they did, in the 50s, 40s, 50s, and 60s when they were first born. I think they're so different now.
Yeah, if they have more role models.
Yes. And women are...
Follow.
Women also say, hey, I want my sons to be... I know I have 2 sons, and that was the whole thing, was to make them beautiful men who love themselves and love, their counterparts. I was not ever going to let them have my life that I had, absolutely
one of the things, I mentioned the word relationships before, and it isn't just with people. I mean, lives are prolonged in a nursing home when you tell the residents, I'm putting a plant in your room, you have to, fertilize it, get it sunshine and water it. Right. Across the hall, we're decorating your room. The people who were given responsibility lived several years longer than the people who were told we're decorating your room. Pets, I won't get into all the statistics. If you have dogs, if you have cats, if you have fewer heart attacks, live longer after the heart attack, have fewer illnesses. So I call it a reverence for life, too. We have 5 children. They grew up in a house which broke all the zoning laws because we were always rescuing. I think it was part of my personality, the doctor part. The yard was filled with animals. The house was filled with them. And they had a reverence for life, you see. So how they treat the world as well as themselves is very different. I mean, if a kid would carry an insect out of the house, and one of our sons, he's grown up, an FBI agent, okay? He's got a gun. He's capable of killing people. I get an email one day. Hey, Dad, I'm down at a meeting. I'm taking a walk. I saw a turtle in the street. And he has a sense of humor. He said, it must be a male who didn't ask the directions. He said, I picked it up, spent half an hour finding a pond to put back. Now, when I read that, I thought, he would never hurt anybody. Yes, if he's saving somebody's life.
Right, of course.
But, when you think of these kids and what they're doing, and here's somebody saving the life of a turtle.
It's beautiful.
And Albert Schweitzer, because I've been doing this my whole life. See, it's a test question. You're walking down the street after rain, you see worms lying on the pavement. What do? Well, I pick them up.
And move them back to the dirt, right?
And I thought, I hope the neighbors don't see me, Yeah. But I can't help it. I feel guilt if I walk by. And then I found an article by Schweitzer, and he said if he's out after rain, he picks up the earthworm, puts it back on the ground. He puts leaves in a puddle so the insects, can climb up on it. I said, thank you, Albert. I don't feel so crazy now. But that's the key. If we can grow up with a reverence for life, then what we do is then choose life. And by that I mean we choose what's life-enhancing, not just for us, but for everyone, so that our actions then help everyone.
I want to share something that you just made me think of, and I'm sort of embarrassed about it, but I'm going to share it because of it. I grew up with 1 dog in our home, and I had a turtle. I replaced her like 3 times when she passed, a little red-eared turtle. We were not allowed to have pets, period. My mom didn't like them. at the time. And I remember in gardening, we had to kill the banana slugs and kill this and kill that. And I remember I never did that, but I'd hear it. So when I became a young adult, I married at 18. My husband was older. In my yard, I saw a snail come on the sidewalk, and I was like, oh my gosh, the programming, kill it, kill it, kill it. So I took some salt, because I heard that works too, and I put it on the poor, it was after rain, and I put it on the poor snail. And the poor thing, obviously, as you know, did not live. That was so traumatic for me that from that moment on, sorry, I'm going to cry. From that moment on, I was rescuing, like you said, the worms and the snails, and I'd make sure that they were on the proper leaves so that they could go their own way. And, it's crazy how our programming, we have to change ourselves, because it was just a snail, but they're creations too, and they have their purpose here. So, and it's funny, I'm seeing out of the corner of my eye, out of my office window in my home, we had a cat that came a week ago and just decided that we're its owner. And until we make sure that it's not anybody's cat, we can't allow it in and out. So we provided food, water, a little house outside. But she's climbing on my windows out here because she hears me on with you. So they do come to us,
The consciousness is non-local. I have learned through an animal intuitive friend. I mean, what convinced me was she's sitting in California and has twice told me where to find lost cats in Connecticut.
Yes.
I mean, her descriptions are in incredible detail, and so I know. And again, the key was, she said, Bernie, you have to quiet your mind. Then you get into the animal's mind.
Right.
So, consciousness is non-local, and that works with people,
exactly.
What you're feeling from your doctor or your mate or anything else, as well as your pets. They know when you love them or not.
Exactly.
And
they know love energy. Yeah.
Yeah. They feel it, and they know.
This is the second animal in a year for us to rescue. They're both black girls, both black cats.
Yeah.
One was when we were living in Florida in Hurricane Isaac last year. She we kept hearing her scream and scream and scream, so we're looking for this cat. My husband's up on the roof, climbing the tree in his suit, and then he gets down and out of the bush. I'm like, it's down here. So he goes over to the bush, and she jumps in his arms, and she's never left. And same with this cat. We sat out on our chairs on our front porch, and up comes this cat and jumps in our laps and has never left. So it's like...
in my latest book, The Art of Healing, one fellow was saying to me, he got such a kick. I said, what? He said, you have a cat named Miracle, a cat named Hope, and a dog named Sex. But I said, if you're yelling outside when you can't find them, Sex, Miracle, Hope, I mean, there are times this has happened. I said to my wife, we better go back in the house because the neighbors wonder what bugs are on. But I have so much fun yelling, Hope, where's Hope? I have no hope. I can't find any hope. And,
that's funny.
That's
very funny.
Have fun with your pets too.
Exactly.
And their names. But let me say, the reason we had a kitten and named it Miracle, a rescued kitten, was that the woman had a dream in which a cat appeared, said, my name is Miracle, and told her how to treat her cancer. Mm-hmm. And she wrote it all down, got her doctor to do it, and of course, is well today. Mm-hmm. But, I mean,
It's beautiful. Consciousness comes from everywhere.
Yeah.
It does. I asked this cat on Sunday, because we're heavy, big meditators, and my husband's an awakening coach, and so, this is our lifestyle. Yeah. And we're sitting out there, and she jumps in my lap, and I said, you're beautiful, what's your name? And I heard the word Sam, and so now I call her Sammy. So,
well, I got to tell you this story then. I've written a book called Buddy's Candle to help people deal with the loss of a loved one. It's written in children's style.
Oh, nice.
But, I mean, the candle theme is, your tears put out my candle. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I finish this book, Buddy's Candle. I take our other dog, who's called Furphy, because my wife didn't want any little pieces of fur in the house and didn't want another dog. So I named him Furphy, and she laughed and let him in. But anyway, I take Furphy for a walk, and I heard a voice. This is not unusual for me. The voice said, go to the animal shelter. So we go back, jump in the car, drive to the shelter. I walk in, there's a dog sitting there. What popped out of me immediately was, what's his name? His name is Buddy. He's been here less than 15 minutes. I said, I'm here to take him home. Now, All I knew is he was brought in because he didn't like his behavior. I didn't know a damn thing about the dog, but I know the voice said go to the animal shelter.
Right.
So he's a part of our family now.
That's beautiful.
And, you know, and the story
Yeah.
told me about his abuse and everything else. Yeah, you know why he was behaving as he was. And I promised him, well, let me say, just so people understand, he jumped out of the car when I stopped for gas on the way home from the shelter. We had a hell of a time getting him back in the car because he doesn't know me, and, you know, he's in a busy road. I got home and I said to him in my mind, why did you do that? He told me he belonged to a couple where the husband was an abusive alcoholic who would leave him locked in the car when he went drinking, so he never wanted to be in a car. I said, I would never treat you that way. 2 weeks later, I went Stop and Shop, came out. The car door was wide open. I must have hit the, you know, the button as I put it in my pocket. He was sitting in the open car.
Oh. Good
and the
boy.
other was in Stop and Shop looking for me.
And I think we hear Buddy snoring.
Yeah, well, that's Furby snoring.
Oh, okay. I love it. You know what, Bernie, we're out of time, but you're amazing. This was wonderful. Thank you so much. Is there any last words you want to give?
Yeah, the last word I always love, because whenever we have an interview, we're running out of time. And I try to remind people of that. We're all going to run out of time someday. So enjoy your lifetime.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you, audience. We'll see you in the next segment.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This was fun. This truly was
Well, it's easy.
so much unexpected joy.
Where are you living now?
In Los Angeles. I'm from LA, and he's Argentine.
That's interesting. Okay.
He's
Yeah,
Argentine.
Amelia Kincaid is the animal intuitive. She's written several books and travels around the world, you know, teaching people how to do it. But I've had so many funny answers from the animals that I know they're telling the truth. I mean, if you have a moment, just what was funny, we had a house rabbit named Smudge, and she would run out in the morning through the pet door, but never come in the evening, and I'd have to run around the yard to catch her. I mean, it was fenced in.
Right.
And one night, you know, after I learned, I went outside, and I quietly in my head said, why don't you let me bring you in at night? And she said, you don't treat the cats that way. And I thought, where the hell is that coming from? I said, what are you talking about? She said, you let the cats stay out at night. I said, they can take care of themselves, but I worry about you if a predator ever got over the fence. And from that night on, there was no problem. I mean, I would go out, and she'd let me pick her up and bring her in.
Oh, that's
And it's
beautiful.
just amazing. I mean, once in a while, I'd see a glint in her eye. You know, she'd run around for 2 minutes just to have fun with me.
Right.
But never the, 20 minutes of chasing. Yeah.
Right. That's
And,
beautiful.
They're all smart creatures.
They are. It's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bless you, dear.